Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Strange Road. I'm your host, Mikey, and of course, riding shotgun, Bub. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm great. A little chilly outside, but I'm good.
All right, you ready to go?
Rocking.
This is
Got my flannel on, strapped in.
I'm ready as well. And tonight we have guest director, our boy TJ and Disbro.
How about that?
Hanging out with us.
I love
Both
it.
those guys. Check out that Master Control cam. TJ and Disbro. You guys are rocking and rolling. Appreciate the hell out of you guys.
Heck yes.
Appreciate all you guys in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Anybody out there that's in YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Got to hit that notification bell.
Jump on board.
And that's just going to get you, anytime we live stream or have a premiere, you're going to get notified. Great way to support the show is with those super stickers and super chats. We keep all of these live streams and premieres ad free. And also, if you're listening in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, please leave that 5-star rating and a positive comment. And if you like it, like the show, share it. Share an episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share this episode. Go back through our library because we've been building them up the last couple years, the last year here.
Yeah,
and we got a hell of a library going here, guys. So
you're just jumping on. There's a lot there.
Go back and dig into that library. There's a lot of crossover with, especially with tonight's guest. Oh, and I almost forgot. You guys can find us Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Strange Road. Go check out the Facebook group. We've got some big stuff coming up, guys, so follow us in those socials. Keep up to date with everything we got cooking. You guys all rule. Thank you so much to everybody listening out there, watching out there. Much, much love, much appreciation. Well, let's hop right into it, Bub. Our guest tonight is well-known paranormal researcher, U.S. Air Force veteran, and author. Check out his new book, which is out now, Travels Through Time, Inside the Fourth Dimension, Time Travel, and Stacked Time Theory. Let's welcome Mike Ricksecker, everybody. Mike, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Thanks so much for having me tonight, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey, we appreciate you making the time for us.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. We've seen so many shows that you've been on over the years, whether it's Ancient Aliens or William Shatner's The UnXplained. So you're killing it. Your new book seems to be doing great. But we'd love to give you the floor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we can hop right into talking about your book and anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is, I've been writing ever since I was a little kid, about, if you can imagine, 7 years old, and I'm writing books. So that's always been a passion of mine. Had several experiences, paranormal, supernatural in nature growing up. And so as an adult, eventually made sense to write about those things. But I've been researching this type of strange phenomena, esoteric knowledge, ancient wisdom, those sorts of things for, probably a good 30 years. And it's just been an absolute passion. So to be able to, be a part of shows like Ancient Aliens and UnXplained with William Shatner, those are honors. I've, grew up watching Shatner on, Star Trek and Ancient Aliens. I was watching that when it first came out, and to now be a part of it is just absolutely amazing. And the latest book, Travels Through Time, that's my 13th. It's the actually first book in the Connecting the Universe series. And time travel is something that's always absolutely fascinated me. And so for this new book series, I decided, well, let's get to, just start from a nice base. Let's get to, the center of the universe here, what actually drives all of this. And I know we're going to be talking about that a lot here this evening.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier in the chat, these are things that we've been talking about that have kind of been overlapping through other episodes, and then also our show Strange Happenings, where, we're covering a lot of the UAP phenomena, and, it always pops up like, who are these beings? And so many people even over the years have talked to us. A Migama elder friend that has always said they're us from the future. And so they're coming back in these times too. So we're hearing a lot of this right now about who these beings could potentially be. Are they coming from another planet, another dimension? Are they us from the future? So that's why we're so stoked for this tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And we really want to hop right in and stacked time theory. I've heard a little bit about this, but just let us know, like, why should we know about stacked time theory?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, your list that you ran down there, I will say all of the above. There are all of those things, not just one. And we'll get into that as we go along. Stack time theory is really the premise of it is the idea and concept that all time is concurrent. Past, present, future is all here with us. We're stuck in this thing that we call the river of time. So there's some rules that are put in place into the universe to give us this idea that time is flowing, that it's linear. But even Einstein said just before his death that time is an illusion. So
Hmm.
if we go with this idea that all time is ever present, that is our fourth dimension, is time, which means that all the other dimensions above us would see time as a whole object, just like we see a three-dimensional cube or like my mouse here and other things around me. We see those as whole objects. From these other dimensions, you would also see time as whole. So if it's all concurrent, take where you're sitting right now. And every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen. It's all right there. Every moment, like a photograph. And all of those photographs are stacked on top of each other, right where you're at. And sometimes, because everything's energy, resonance, frequency, vibration, two of those moments will resonate at the same frequency for just a moment, and we'll get a glimpse of another point in time, which is
Mm.
something that we would call like a time slip. And what's fascinating about that is that we may be getting a glimpse of an image or a visage or something of the past, and those people which we're sharing that time slip with are looking at us or looking into the future.
Mm.
And do they see us as a ghost or some other form of manifestation? We're not really sure. They might, but in a lot of these accounts, those beings who we're looking at will react to us as if we're the ghosts.
Wow.
That's what I was just about to say. So we might be the
Weren't we
ghosts
just
to the
talking about-
ghosts that we're seeing. So when we see a ghost, we might be
Right.
the ghost to them.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Never thought of that. That's going to blow my mind for a minute.
Yeah, because you do hear a lot of, talking about whether it's Skinwalker Ranch or Stardust Ranch, these portals that are opening up, different activity that is it ghosts? Is it people in other dimensions? Now it's sort of it all is really interconnected. And we've been talking about this a lot lately, is maybe some of these what we think are ghosts are actually just interdimensional slips of some kind.
Yeah. There's a lot of these things that we chalk up as ghosts. Now, I'm not ruling out whatsoever that some of these are actually human spirits that are still,
Right.
present, and they've just lost, the three-dimensional body. Talking about dimensions, we are fascinating beings because our consciousness, which is in that dimension of time, that's the fourth dimension, is inside a three-dimensional body. So we lose the body, and sometimes the consciousness stays here on the fourth dimension. Other times it moves to, we talk about, heaven or Summerland or, the home world, whatever that is. We have all kinds of different religious ideas about what that is and where the consciousness goes off to. So is that the fifth dimension, sixth, seventh? Is it above all of that? We're not really sure, but so it can go there, it can stay here. And so it could be that, but it also could be, yes, these two moments in time that are slipping in and out of each other. It could be a being from another dimension. So is it a being from the sixth dimension, the seventh dimension? There are going to be other entities living in those dimensions that they're going to be outside the scope of time, and they'd be able to move in and about much more freely than us. Are some of these extraterrestrials? Could very well be time travelers. And when we talk some sort of time traveler, it doesn't necessarily mean us.
Right.
It could be, but it could also be, you have to think about this. Our planet has been around for 4.5 billion years. It's a long time. We're going to be around about another 5 billion years until the sun turns into a red giant and encompasses the earth and destroys us.
Yep.
So we have to get off here at some point if we want to survive. We got a little time yet. And that's a long time. So you think about this. The dinosaurs went extinct 64 million years ago. That's just a little more than 1% of the entire history of the Earth that happened. The oldest Homo sapien fossils that we found are 315,000 years old. So we've been here a very, very short period of time. So given that, say 64 million years from now, what does the Earth look like? Are humans gone? Have we annihilated ourselves? Have we colonized elsewhere? We might not even be here. And in that time, there could be another life form, intelligent life form that has evolved, developed civilization, technology, maybe even time travel technology. So could be time traveler that is indigenous here to Earth, but not necessarily human. Also, and these are a lot of different ideas and theories that we can throw out there. Could be, again, take it 64 million, 100 million, a billion years from now. Could be an extraterrestrial civilization out there looking for a new home. Maybe they're colonizing. We don't know. We can speculate. But they find Earth, and to them, it's habitable. And they come here, they set up shop, develop their civilization and technology again. Maybe they develop time travel technology and go back to look at the Earth's past. So, they could still be extraterrestrials that we're seeing as far as like some of these UFOs, UAPs, this sort of thing, beings that we're seeing. It could still be extraterrestrial living here on Earth and a time traveler all at the same time.
Yeah. Unpack that one, but I saw your brain just broke.
A lot happening there. But I mean, they're all very intriguing, interesting theories as well, which we've talked about this a lot about, again, with theories. I love it because I can't disprove them. I can't say yes or no, but it does lend to the thought process and expansion of just going, what if it is this way? What if, kind of just taking that viewpoint that we have sometimes and flipping it to where we're like, oh, it has to be like ET here, maybe it is an ET, maybe it is, but opening up the door of possibilities to a wider spectrum rather than, I think sometimes we get it kind of pigeonholed, because I was even going to say earlier, like non-human intelligences. We think of it as like, okay, well then it's going to be an alien, but what if it's not? What if it is like a Star Trek episode where it's just like this pink cloud, and that's the non-human intelligence? Like, that's one of the things I still have a tough time grappling with is like, even if we do interact with something or make will we project how we think it should look and it will be able to assume something like that? Or is there an actual hard and fast, like we're just going to have to learn how to interact with some pink ethereal cloud? Well, if that is, that's a big step.
That brings up a good point, because sometimes you ever catch some of these channelers on YouTube back in the day. I used to watch a lot of these weird videos, and a lot of the themes overarching, whether it's the gentleman Daryl Anka and some of these guys that are quote channelers, and some of the messages you hear are, we are just literally a higher consciousness, and our brains are projecting what they look like to us. So because they're on such a higher dimension, that it's within our brain is how we perceive them. So we
really actually perceive them appropriately.
Right.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
I don't know, Mike.
Fair enough,
have you ever heard that before?
It makes sense, though, if you're getting to higher dimensions, that we as a lower dimension have a tough time understanding or interpreting them. But
so we
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. These beings, entities, other forms of consciousness from these other dimensions, we don't quite have the proper geometry. We don't quite have the proper senses to be able to see and interact with that properly. Our eyes only see into a narrow band of the spectrum. We only hear certain wavelengths. And, a good example here is, let's take something that we can understand, other dimensions that are accessible to us. So second dimension is a plane, flat surface, circle, square, rectangle, that sort of thing. So somebody that is in that dimension, and you may have heard the term flatlander. If you were to pass a three-dimensional object like a sphere through their world, they would never comprehend properly that entire sphere. What they would see as a sphere pass through their land is they would see like this small circle open up and it would get wider and wider and wider until it got to its apex. And then as it finished passing through, it gets slower, or it would get smaller, smaller, smaller,
Right.
until you got to that very small circle again. That's all that they would ever really be able to perceive. They could tell, okay, something's there. I don't really understand what it is, why this circle is opening and closing, doesn't make sense to me. But they would still perceive a little bit of it, as much as their senses could pick up on. And I think that's what's happening in a lot of these cases of, it might be a strange vaporous form that we see. It might be a shadow person. Some people report seeing some sort of shimmer type person. So a lot of these different types of strange types of beings and entities, we just don't have the proper senses to be able to make sense of it all.
Right.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
It does, but it does. But then there has to be, at some level of whatever we're catching, even if it is that sphere coming in, not as a sphere, but the circle, and as it widens and then collapses back down, even though they're not sensing appropriately, say that 2-dimension of the 3-dimension, they're still seeing something. So we as the perceivers, even with imperfect equipment, are still going to see something. So maybe that's why it's even more like, people are like, I don't even know what to tell you what I saw. It doesn't even make sense what I saw. How many times do you hear that where you're like, I can't really tell you what it was?
Yeah. So that brings up a good point, Mike, is if beings in higher dimensions are coming into our dimension, what are we seeing?
It depends on the being. Again, sometimes we see it as some sort of shadow. I'll just throw shadow people out here for a moment, because I've wrote an entire book on that as well. And there's all different varying types. There's ones that are very solid, look humanoid in form. There's some that appear to crawl on the ground. There's some that are just a vaporous mist, almost like a cloud. There's some that we call like a wisp. It's just very, very translucent, moves very fast. It's almost like you blink and you miss it, sort of thing. And of course, you hear about ones that are wearing hats or have red eyes and these sorts of things. They come in all different shapes and sizes and forms. And so this is what I say when it comes to that. You have like several different entities, several different species of entities that are entering into our dimension using a very similar energetic modality, whether that's the shadow, or we mentioned the shimmer type person, or maybe even apparition like, to enter into our world, into our dimension.
Wow. So now when people talk about these crafts, all these, the big UAP files and Grush and all these things coming out with biological, entities, and, some of the crafts appear to be just blip completely into nothing, and they're just gone. And so there is this interdimensional aspect to these craft as well. And I don't know, if this kind of goes along with these entities, but also these craft and how they're coming in and out of our existence too.
Like a hyperdimensional craft.
Yeah. Like the cubes with the circular aura around them. You hear about the black cubes and these Tic Tacs.
I've heard about them. I've never seen any accounts. I've heard in just passing, but those are interesting. I mean, very interesting.
Yeah, there was a gentleman at a conference here. It was Phenomicon. And he had worked, I forget his exact position, but he was part of underwater crew. It was going into these deep sea dives, and they had seen one of those types of cubes down there at the bottom of the ocean. So yeah, really, really fascinating. But it's the same type of concept. These different forms of craft and UAPs and full-blown UFOs and things like that. A lot of them have the same type of properties of moving in and out of our dimension, maybe in and out of our point in time if they're time travelers. I do believe some are physical craft that have come here from some other planet in the cosmos. Now, that makes you ask the question, of course, how are they getting here over such long distances? Well, maybe they figured out how to, use an Einstein-Rosen bridge and, a wormhole or some sort of tunneling through the universe. They may have figured that out. Some of these may actually be indigenous to here. You hear stories about, underwater bases or very, very deep locations within the earth, which I know a lot of people might scoff at, like the whole hollow earth idea, but I put an ED at the end of that, hallowed, because we have some very, very large areas within the earth, old lava tubes, magma chambers, these sorts of things that, are absolutely massive, that would, be conducive to some sort of entity or being or life form that is, trying to live undetected amongst us.
Exactly. We love to talk about the Hollow Earth theory, and one of the biggest proponents was right here in Ohio, John Symes from the Cincinnati area, and there's the Hollow Earth Monument down there in Hamilton County. And so, that being Mammoth Cave. We have some cryptid researchers that we've had on that talk about, the dogmen and the Sasquatch are using these cave systems and these, they just can disappear into what seems like nowhere.
Right. When they seemingly disappear, it's because they're using these networks of underground caves, which there's a fairly large network of underground caves.
And the missing 411 overlays with all the cave systems. So
absolutely.
All that stuff really starts.
But I mean, it's also one of the best places to write out tough times. I just watched the Netflix show, whatever it is, the Morgan Freeman with the evolution of Earth and how many times all the animals died off, and one or two species hung on, and lo and behold, that weird, ugly thing that was living under the dirt is apparently where we come from.
That little shrew.
No, that weird looking fleshy animal. I don't know what it was. It was. I was like, I have never heard this in my life, but it makes sense. There's safety underground, right?
There is, yeah. You look at places around the world like Kuyu, the huge network of tunnels and caverns, and all carved out by humans. And there's speculation that they were used many, many times over tens of thousands of years. Wow. The remnants that we usually see are, the last time it was used, right? Because you don't usually, if you're living somewhere, you don't usually keep your garbage amongst you. You're cleaning up and all that. So it's that very last remnant of whoever was there, where they've left some things scattered about. But even, there's some fascinating research that's been done here about like the polar shifts. So last significant polar shift lasts about 400 years, about 40,000 years ago. Well, about 40,000 years ago, we find a significant amount of cave art. And that makes a lot of sense, because when that polar shift occurs, our magnetic protection, our magnetic shield around the planet that protects us from the solar wind, dwindled down to about 8 to 10%. So you go outside during the day, you're going to get fried.
Wow.
So these people were staying inside to protect themselves, and they got all these walls, and they're drawing on the walls with their cave art, and so that makes a lot of sense.
I was just it makes me think of the movie The Croods, when they stand in the cave all the time and draw on the cave art. But it also made me think of, you have diurnal, nocturnal, you have all these animals that are either up at night or day, and then some that do both of them. So we come out into the elements, our protection goes away from that, sphere around the earth, that, radiation waves. And then next thing you know, we're inside and we're like, well, we're bored. Yeah. We need to start drawing and keeping ourselves busy and remember, makes sense. It's really interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. And Mike, I want to just go back a little bit. I love what you said about some of these beings could just be beings that have been here forever. I love that idea, because if you study the Vedic texts and look at the king's list of Sumeria and Egypt, and maybe they're not ancient aliens. Maybe, of course, I think aliens did visit and give us knowledge and so forth. And I think that there's a lot of gray area there. What if there were just really, really advanced people that have just been here forever? Now they're living in these, maybe these deep underground bases, and these bases that are under the sea. They've always been here. They've never left. I really like that.
It's it's definitely a great idea in theory. And I think what we can look at in regards to that is some of these reports of different extraterrestrials that people have reported seeing and what have you, that some of them are described as insectoid in nature, like almost like like an ant or a praying mantis or something like that. But then when you look at our indigenous history and you go to like the American Southwest, you find these tales of the ant people. And right there in the Verde Valley, Montezuma's Well, I love this story. Montezuma's Well, traditionalists say, well, it's some sort of sinkhole. They don't really know because they can't get down in there. Basically, it's a big, wide, open area. It is like really a hole in the ground, but there's water in there, and they can't get down inside because you get to a certain depth and everything gets pushed back out. They can't get probes down there. You can't dive down there. Nothing. But there are indigenous tales from that area that long, long ago, when the Great Cataclysm occurred, that the survivors of Lemuria were brought down inside that area by the ant people. The ant people were trying to save the humans and basically rode out the Great Cataclysm there within their cave system there at Montezuma's Well. And then when the cataclysm had subsided and was deemed safe to go above ground again, then the humans came out. But they were saved by these ant people. So what if these ant people never left? What if they're still down there?
And I think they probably are.
Yeah.
You know, we did a Earth Wisdom Jeep tour in the Sedona area. We've been to the Verde Valley a bunch of times. We've shot some stuff in Montezuma's Castle, a couple different vortex spots over the years. Montezuma's Well, the day that we were there, was closed, and we shot the whole road closure because we were so stoked to go there. And we rolled up, and they had a bunch of flooding when we were there. And like Mike said, it's this.
What year was this?
This is 2021.
Okay.
A couple years back. Not even that long ago. And so we shot a bunch of stuff. We went to Montezuma's Castle. We went to the V-Bar V Heritage Site where they have that big serpent petroglyph that lines up to the winter and summer solstice. And you know, we talked with those guys about our Serpent Mound here in Ohio and how it's basically the same calendar. And so Montezuma's Well, unfortunately, was completely closed.
What if something was going on there that day? Maybe there was a
There's a
portal
lot of federales, a lot of federal agents that were around there. They were creeping up on us when we were flying the drone that day. We got stopped.
Really?
Because you cannot fly a drone inside the federal park. So we got outside the park and we're flying around the perimeter, and he just popped up. And, you know, he was cool. He's a really nice guy, but
they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And
interesting.
But Justin and
That is interesting.
Bub and I years ago were in Sedona, and our Jeep tour guide had told us about if you go visit the 90-year-olds and 100-year-old people that have been living in this Verde Valley, they'll tell you there is
Ishtar,
and that basically this being that's in the cave systems,
like the sheriff of the West.
He's the
Southwest.
police.
It was interesting of the Greys.
Oh
yeah, I forgot that story.
And basically, he said all these people have known that deep down in these caverns, there's these beings that are still there to this day, and this Ishtar is like the police,
basically,
of all the
like
Greys.
The Men in Black,
and we're
kinda.
like, what?
Yeah, we were the only two on the Jeep tour, so we got our own like private tour, which was awesome, and we got so much more lore and just kind of, maybe it's history, maybe it's not lore, maybe that's what's really going on out there. I mean, you got Dulce, New Mexico, where maybe there's the base under that, Mesa, like there's just a lot.
And we also interviewed Clifford Mahuta years back at an event that we were doing.
I was just about to mention Clifford.
Yeah. And so he's talked to us about their connection with, the ant people, but then also they were the people that came to help build Serpent Mound. Their culture is connected here in Ohio. So we have 2 videos that we have up on YouTube with Clifford that kind of connects both those worlds. And so, their iconography of the serpent, and, I've read the Book of the Hopi, and this is their story. is
I've heard
the
a lot
ant
about
people.
the inner earth, and what you've said as well, Mike, is, the lava tubes and some of these other things where we don't even have to make it necessarily. There's some of these structures that could already be there that we don't, but we also build and construct underground. There's huge, storage facilities, governmental facilities into mountains. And what we actually know about what goes on underground is probably about as much as what we know is what happens in the ocean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's so much that's just, that's dark to us about all of that. And having been in the military, I've been in some of those underground locations, and they're absolutely massive. That what we've done, and I know that that's only a small fraction,
right,
of what we've done. For your listeners and viewers, I would recommend them to go back to your interviews with Clifford, because he passed away almost 2 years ago. And that was a wealth of knowledge that was lost when he passed. When my first venture into that area, Montezuma as well, I was trying to connect with him to get his personal take on it, because I've met him before, and so I'm trying to call him, and he wasn't answering. But that's because of how ill he was, and he passed away just a couple months after that. So I recommend your viewers and listeners going back to that. But there's so much going on underground that we can't even really fathom. And people in different locations around the country, really around the world, in different spots, they hear that hum, and they're wondering where the hum is coming from. And usually it's from some place underground that they're doing something down there, and that vibration just emanates from out of the earth, to above ground. We're hearing it, and we're like, where? We can't find a source. And that's because they're doing something underground.
That's what you think the cases are when people in different parts of the globe are going, there's this weird noise, because it happens all across the world, right? I mean, people are like, we don't know what this noise is. It's been happening for days, weeks, months, sometimes years almost. I mean, I would have to move. With misophonia, noises driving me crazy.
I hear it here.
Really?
I hear it here. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
And there's in one location that I lived at in Maryland. It was Pasadena, Maryland, which is south of Baltimore. And I had somebody try to tell me one time, it was from the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Well, Aberdeen Proving Grounds are north of Baltimore. I'm not going to hear it from them. I mean, for me to be able to hear, and it was a very, very loud bang, and we'd hear it periodically there. It'd be like, it would totally rock the city of Baltimore if that was the case.
Wow.
But on occasion, we'd just be hanging out. Maybe we're in the living room watching TV, or maybe we're outside, and boom, what the heck is that? We would laugh and make a joke of it, like, they blew something up over at the meth house across the street, or, whatever. Wow. But this one morning, I was in bed and was just really starting to wake up, and right outside the window, and it wasn't a very large front yard, there was the electrical pole, and I heard this massive boom. It sounded like the transformer on the electrical pole had exploded. And so, I go to the window, I'm looking around, I'm looking for smoke, anything, because it was right there. There were people coming outside onto the street, looking up, looking around, what's going on. It's one of these phantom explosions.
Yeah.
What is that? Yeah.
They've been recorded all over. What was the one in Russia that was a couple years ago, or maybe it was Ukraine, where they were recording audio for hours and hours and hours, and you just hear this. It's almost like repetitive.
Yeah.
Every so often, you would hear these boom, and it hits.
Yeah. Well, if it's resonating and actually causing almost like a physical disturbance too, just because of the low impact drive of it. But I was wondering, so is it, if you're recording it and getting actual audio, that's one. But two, what if, there's like a shared audible disturbance for, a group of people, or like say the Havana Syndrome stuff, where people are like, we're hearing these noises or frequencies inside, but it wasn't a noise. So I'm wondering, I'm not discounting that it could happen or that it does happen, but there's some phenomena, try to explain it away sometimes, but I think there's a lot of covert things that happen where they're like, what are you talking about? What noise?
Yeah.
Who blew up what? Which again, you have to keep things, covert and secret enough to keep them safe and, keep our secrets safe. But I think there's a lot underground. I don't even want to go into the Denver International Airport. Let's just leave
I
that
don't
one
think
alone.
we should. Yeah,
We'll leave it alone. We'll leave it
popped
alone.
up in my
That's
head.
too far.
But
Yeah.
Mike, I really want to get back to time travel in your book because I think we did covered a lot of groundwork of, potentially what are these interdimensional beings? Is it connected to spirits and other paranormal activity? And how does all this stuff connect to time travel and time paradoxes? And, people want to base everything they know off of time travel from Back to the Future.
Well,
The paradoxes of you never want to go talk to yourself. Is all that horseshit? I mean,
Well,
there's
what's
a lot of
funny about
paradoxes.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the grandfather paradox, what's funny about that is, scientists will kind of laugh it off as well. It's it's a storytelling gimmick for writers, and makes for fun sci-fi and all that. But in the 1980s, there was a Russian scientist, I can't pronounce his name, Novichov, something. Whatever. He came up with this consistency principle. And basically what the principle stated was that theoretically time travel is possible. However, you could not change anything when you went back in time, because then you would end up with a remainder when you did all the calculations. It would not equate back out to zero. So he said, you can time travel, but you can't change anything because the math needs to work out.
That's interesting.
So, yeah. So, because of this, there was a correspondence between Kip Thorne, renowned physicist, and Joe Polchinski, another renowned physicist. Polchinski died a handful of years back. Kip Thorne's still around. He worked with Christopher Nolan on Interstellar.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So Polchinski and Thorne are having this back and forth. And Polchinski came up with this paradox to be able to disprove this consistency principle. And what he fleshed out was, he said, take a billiard ball. You shoot a billiard ball through an Einstein-Rosen bridge, through a wormhole.
Okay.
We're based off theory of relativity. We can use this. And the end of that wormhole, the end of that Einstein-Rosen bridge, we're going to set up back behind it just at the right moment, that when the billiard ball comes out of the wormhole, that it will hit itself, the billiard ball, just before it enters that wormhole and knocks it off course. So it never enters the wormhole to begin with. And so now you have this paradox of this billiard ball coming out of the wormhole and knocking itself off course. So it's not supposed to go in. So I'm looking at this as I'm writing my
whoa.
This is the grandfather paradox using a billiard ball.
Sure.
Instead of somebody going back in time and killing their grandfather so they're never born, this is a billiard ball going back in time and knocking itself off course so it never goes into the wormhole. It's the same thing, but because it's a couple of physicists talking about it, and we're using, Einstein-Rosen bridge and a billiard ball, it's acceptable. Not acceptable if you're talking about dead grandfathers.
I've never heard that model used before. I like it.
Now, one other one that I have heard is you can only travel back in time to the point where the time machine was invented. Is there any validity to that? Because you can't really go backwards past. So, like, for example,
they use that with the idea of using a black hole to time travel.
Okay.
Like, you could not, if the black hole was created,
that would make sense.
We'll say if the black hole was created 1 million years ago, and you used that, because black holes bend space and time, and you used that to slingshot yourself back in time, that you could only go as far back as to when the black hole was created. So if you want to go see the dinosaurs, you're not going to.
Right.
Again, this is, theoretical physics. So
yeah,
who knows?
That makes a little more sense. I mean, I've never heard that. You've got a lot of good ones, and I've not heard a lot of these.
I love time travel, man.
He mentioned Interstellar. And I think that was just
I love
for
that
me,
movie.
visually speaking, to just show the representation of time as a construct instead of just our, thinking about it on our watch as our seconds tick by and they're gone. That it's actually this 3D structure you can jump in and out of, or like these beings might crawl out of it like the Grand Canyon. To them might be time. Like it's just really interesting because again, that goes to. One, we have a tough time wrapping our head around just these concepts. Two, trying to wrap our heads around if they're a non-human intelligence. Like there are so many steps that we have to get to be able to start really unpacking a lot of this that, with what's going on with the disclosure movement right now. And that's kind of hit the highest boiling point I've seen in my lifetime so far that, hopefully we're on that edge, but you wonder sometimes because it is a lot of information that we talk about this subject a lot.
My brain is so puny. I can't even.
Right.
It's so
but you
hard.
I
try my hardest.
My question is, for the average bear out there that doesn't really ponder on these things and just, doesn't either want to or have the time to, or it's just not their cup of tea. If it's foisted upon them like, hey, here it is today, and here we're going to have to start learning a lot of different information now about the universe and what's going on in it, not just our planet and our country and our county and whatever. What do you think that looks like? How do we unroll something like that if that's really going to ever occur?
Time travel?
No.
How we unpack that or
not time travel. If there is we have to come to terms with the fact that there either is a time traveling non-human intelligence out there, or if it is us, how do we as the people of this earth and planet today, and again, like I said, we three enjoy this subject matter, but for anyone that doesn't, or say they don't even care, it's just not in their wheelhouse, but one day they're going to have to acknowledge like it does happen, right? Let's just run that theorem. What do you think that looks like on a broad scale for people that have either poo-pooed it their whole life and not really bought into any of it, or just, again, they just don't look up at the sky and wonder at all. They're just, I'm worried about, getting groceries or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of people are still going to be kind of nonplussed about it. I mean, you look at what we're doing right now with UFOs. I mean, now we're having congressional hearings about it. And, we have government officials that are discussing it. And so it's become a much bigger deal. We basically have officially, those of us that have been in the field for a long time are like, we've been talking about this, but now we have officially said that, there's things that are going on in the skies that we can't explain. And most of the public was, okay.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think kind of the same thing when you say, no, there's time travelers. I think most people, because a lot of humans, they're very busy in their lives. They have they're trying to pay the bills, they're going to work, paying the bills,
exactly.
They put food on the table, that sort of thing. So the idea that there's time travelers out there, they might kind of like, oh, okay. And move on, with their lives. I don't think that there's going to be
an aha moment
like the whole UFO thing. For a long time, people were saying there's going to be this mass panic, and there's going to be people are going to lose their faith and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and we're not seeing that happen right now. So I think the same thing with time travel. There are going to be some people like us that are very, very interested in it. You'll have a small section of people that might have some outrage or something like that. But I think the general masses are still going to continue what the general masses do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think of the scene in Contact where the first device gets blown up by is it Jake Busey? He's the religious zealot. He blows up the first time travel capsule, and then Jodie Foster gets to go.
Other day too.
Did you? I did not know that.
My
Carl
fiance
Sagan
hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, she hadn't seen it yet. I was like, oh, we got to watch this. So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So good. What a great film. But
yeah, it was a good film.
To that end, I think if we got to that step of, again, that's where I think I'm getting more to is not even just the fact that, oh, yeah, they're out there. Maybe there's non-human intelligence. I'm more on the, like, they've landed at the White House, or we're going to have a news camera display of like, hey, we're not alone, and they are here, and they're going to talk. Like, but that point, I think when we get to that inflection point, you think people will just be like, no problem?
I think they'll just be like, yeah, I already knew that. We already knew that, right? People will.
I think just because we revolve these doors a lot, we feel that way. I think for a lot of people that don't go this route or don't want to, it's going to be eye-opening in that.
I just don't think they'll care.
Yeah, if you had a UFO land on the White House lawn and you had the
I go extreme
that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that is going to you're going to get a lot of news coverage with that, and people are going to be watching it. But again, I think it's going to be a small sect of people that are going to go off the deep end with it. I think you're going to have a lot of enthusiasts. The ones that are like in Independence Day, they're getting up on the top of the roof and they're like, take me to your leader, that sort of thing. You'll have a section of people like that. I think most people are going to be in the middle, kind of like interested, watching, and then others that are just going to be kind of, okay, that's cool, kind of figured, and again, go back to my life. But it will garner a lot of news coverage, of course.
Man, that's not going to happen, but it's fun to think about.
That's where I go with it. Just at one point, sometime, we're going to have to run all these out, all these thought processes, or there's nothing out there. Or, like you said, in 5 billion years, when the sun gets to its solar maximum, then we're done. Everything's cooked and we've got to get out of here anyway. So, there's this long timetable of looking at things to where, like you said earlier in the episode, we're talking on scales of hundreds of thousands of years or a couple millions.
Yeah.
But
we do have to look toward the future. So, when we shut down some of the space programs and what have you, it was really kind of discouraging. Okay, fine, I have a fascination with the stars and astronomy and exploring the cosmos, but when it comes to humanity, at some point we do need to look beyond. Yes, it's far in the future. Colonizing the solar system or out into another galaxy, it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. But we need to start setting the building blocks so that future generations can do it, because they are eventually going to have to do it.
Agreed.
Yep.
Totally agreed.
One thing that I always get so confused on is, and I've had a lot of experiences with the nature of time breaking down at certain moments where you kind of have these almost like a slip of consciousness where you do feel like they're being in the present moment. The Buddhas, people that meditate understand this, of being in the present moment and not having a sense of time. What is it? Time? Is it just a perception? Is there actually time? What is the nature of it?
Yeah, time is the way that we perceive our reality. Again, time doesn't really exist. We've invented this concept of time to help describe our reality. We use it to keep track of the seasons, when to plant the crops, when to show up at work at the right moment so our bosses don't get upset with us, when to catch the bus, that sort of thing. We're kind of bound by these rules of the system. So when we talk like the river of time, well, it's not, the river, the water that's making that river flow. It's the banks that's holding the water in place to make it flow. If you remove the banks, everything spills out and it's all there. It's all concurrent. So there's rules in place for this system to make it seem it's linear, but it's really not. I believe that when we experience real time travel, that it is going to be more of the consciousness that enter into a meditative state and be able to move in and out of these different moments. If each moment in that stack of time it resonates at a different frequency, then it's a matter of trying to tune into that specific frequency, so to speak. And I believe that people that have reached that deep meditative state with the intention to do so are able to do that. It happens inadvertently when we sleep. People that have premonitions while they're dreaming, they wake up and a week later, all of a sudden, the exact thing that they dreamt about happens. Well, yeah, that was a form of time travel while they were sleeping. It was a type of meditative state. And I know at some point you wanted to talk about doppelgangers, and I believe that is also a type of time travel incident.
Oh boy.
I'm just holding back.
Okay.
You go.
You believe that the doppelganger phenomenon, we've talked, but that's been one of my almost like how I've tried to describe it. So we've had a gentleman on, Thomas Johnson. He owns the rock shop that's right down the road from Serpent Mound. It's the alternate universe rock shop. He's a trilobite expert, fossil hunter, just amazing guy.
He's a full-on carnival.
A lot of paranormal experiences within the Serpent Mountain crater. Tom has some incredible doppelganger stories that he's told on our show. And essentially his house being built by a Freemason, being set up within this kind of mathematical geometric
energy trapping.
Yeah. And the house across the street also being very old, and which is now a Dollar General. They're having all kinds of weird
fairly
incidents
paranormal
there. But with my sense of Tom's house, his property, the ley lines from the crater and Serpent Mound being right down the road, that there's just this high probability of high strangeness.
Like an energy vortex of some kind.
Where he's either seeing himself in the past, or someone is seeing Tom in the past, or they're seeing Tom in the future because, hey, you were just down by the rock pile. Oh, no, I wasn't. I was right here in the shop. No, but I just saw you down there. No, I was right here.
Yeah, it's
so
that's probably what's happening.
Numerous cases.
Can you dive into that a little bit more? Because this is
absolutely
a hot button topic here.
Yeah, I love doppelgangers.
Yeah. A couple of stories that I like to tell with this. So, if you look up top doppelganger cases, just Google that, and you'll find the famous German poet Goethe. You'll find his story there. And, of course, doppelganger means double walker in German. You have all this like legend and lore, evil twins, and or entities are trying to mimic you and do something nefarious. And I think it's just because the people of the time didn't understand what was really going on. So one day, Goethe's walking toward Dressenheim, and he tells his story in his work Dichtung und Wahrheit, or Poetry and Truth. He's walking down the road, heading to Dressenheim. He's having an affair with a young woman. He's lost in his thoughts. Kind of like today we say we're zoning out, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
driving down the road, we zone out, we miss our exit, and turn around, go back. So he's kind of in that same mode at that time. All of a sudden, he notices on the side of the road there's this man in a gold-trimmed gray suit. Turns to get a better look at the guy, and all of a sudden, poof, disappears. What the heck was that? Very curious about it. Can't do anything about it because the guy disappeared, but whoa, very startling. So he takes note of it, continues on his way to Dressenheim. A couple years later, he's on that same road, walking in the opposite direction away from Dressenheim. And he's coming up on that spot where he had that incident. He starts to remember, oh yeah, this is where I had, I saw that guy and he disappeared. And he looks down at himself, oh my gosh, I was the guy in the gold trimmed gray suit because I'm wearing that right now.
No way.
Yeah. So he had actually seen himself at another point in time. So the question is, okay, how did that happen? How did that work? And I think it's because he was lost in his thoughts. He was zoning out. It's a type of meditative state. And we enter into that type of meditative state all the time. Like I said, we're driving. We don't go into full meditative state. Otherwise, we crash the car. But, we do it while we're driving, mowing the lawn, washing the dishes, whatever. It's a type of meditative state. And I think when he had entered into that state, he had tuned into his own energy at another point in time in that location, got a glimpse of it. And then when he noticed the gentleman, which turned out to be himself, and he turned to get a better look, he broke that meditative state, and the guy seemingly disappeared.
Makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
It does make sense. I mean, it's just such a wild explanation that you would think like, man, oh, that was me. Like, but to also
think about it with Tom, the veil is thin in that area.
Yeah.
So, if and Tom being who he is in the area, and maybe but the thing is with Tom is other people are seeing him.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, he's not seeing his own doppelganger. It's other people going, "Hey, what are you doing in here? You're outside." And he's like, "No, I'm in here manning the shop." Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
My jaw was just dropped. I was like, I can't believe you have all these doppelganger stories, and we just did not know this.
Yeah, Old Norse mythology called those Vartigers. I had a woman from Turkey that had contacted me a while back, and she had reported that there was this one day where she had walked into the house. Her husband's on the phone, and he's like freaking out. Like, wait a minute, you just came into the house and went upstairs. He said you were going to go take a shower, and he was on the phone the whole time, and even his buddy on the phone was like, "Yeah, I heard you tell her that." Crazy stuff like that. A friend of mine here in Ohio, her name's Meg, and she has a book that she's written at a house that she had lived in that was very haunted. And one of the stories that she tells about this is she had woken up at night one time when she was a teenager. She had heard something going on out in the kitchen, and her mom was supposed to be at work. So she was like, "Oh, maybe mom got home." As she goes out to take a look, and she walks into the kitchen, and her mom wasn't in the kitchen at the time, but all of a sudden she walks in through the door from I guess the garage was back there, from the garage into the kitchen. And there's her mom, and she remembers it was like her favorite sweater and a pair of jeans. And her mom sees her there, and all of a sudden kind of gets really wide-eyed, freaks out, and runs off down the hall to her bedroom. So Meg chases after her, gets to the bedroom door. It's closed. She opens it, and there's her mom laying in bed. And she's like in a nightgown or whatever. She wakes up her mom, what are you doing? Why are you laying in bed? She's like, "Oh, I wasn't feeling well at work, came home early and went to sleep." So she saw what, she was calling a doppelganger of her mom. And when she told me the story, I'm like, this to me sounds more like a time slip incident that, when you saw your mom, it was at a different point in time. And apparently she saw you because she reacted to you. And maybe because you're still a kid at the time, you were at a different age, than whatever time frame that visage of the mom was occurring in, and she freaked out and ran off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah. All of that just made my blood run cold.
Yeah.
I got chills when you're like the lady's sleeping. I'm like, oh my God. And here's the thing too. Like, I was not really hip or aware of doppelganger stories necessarily, other than oh, hey, Mike, there was somebody that kind of looked like you. They could have been you, not hey, there was somebody that was definitely you. I know it was you.
Talk to him.
And then you disappeared or whatever. And it's like, those were new to me just a couple of years ago. So I've really gotten into them now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like celebrity look-alike stuff.
We mean exact. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I know you guys are filmmakers, and I had and I've done a lot of that sort of stuff as well for my YouTube channel and all that. But I was getting too overwhelmed with all the different things on my plate, so I had hired somebody out to do some of those videos. And so I put out a doppelganger one and talking about some of these different stories. And for the intro piece, they did the whole celebrity lookalike thing. And it's like, did you even watch the content of this video? It's nothing on celebrity lookalikes.
Right. Because it's so easy to misconstrue that. You're like, oh, doppelgangers. And some people are like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And you're like, that's the scariest thing I've ever heard of. And they're like, what's so scary about somebody kind of looking like you? It's like, you don't know what doppelganger I'm speaking about.
We're talking about the doppelganger phenomenon.
Doppelganger's got a doppelganger.
The phenomena of doppelgangers. Not just somebody looking like somebody.
Right.
But this strange and time travel.
As they say in Thailand, same but different. Doppelgangers.
Mike's putting together a big piece for me because that's the time slip part of Tom's experience. Like, that's what I've been toying with. Like I said, I like to think about these things, but my brain is so puny that when it gets down to physics and quantum physics and these kind of things, I can kind of grasp it. And when I hear so many great stories, I can put some little things together. But, time travel, sound, resonant frequency, these things I think is the untapped potential of technology that we're getting ready to discover right now is sound vibrational, harmonic resonant frequencies. And, you know, you hear that these time travel machines or these UAPs that they create this hum, there's always a sound. And so I always wonder if you know, number one, has a time machine been invented? Or like you said, Mike, is it something where it's inside us, where we're looking inward to be able to time travel in a meditative state? Or do you think a machine that has some sort of vibrational resonant frequency has been invented already?
Yeah, I'm more of the school of thought that is going to be more us than a machine. You know, our theoretical physicists, when they talk about it, say, well, yeah, we could build a machine, but you know, you'd have to harness all the energy of the sun and put it into the machine to make this work. And it's like, okay, so we'd annihilate the planet trying to make that idea work. Or they go with the whole black hole idea, you know, slingshot yourself around a black hole, which, you know, we're not even close to enough to a black hole to be able to reasonably get to at this point. And the other one, even if you don't, you know, accidentally slip past the event horizon or are lost forever, the gravitational force is so strong that you'll go through a process that they call spaghettification. So it's going to stretch you out, your craft in you, like a string of spaghetti, which will essentially kill you. So it's not really feasible. At least those couple of ideas that they've given us. Yeah, I think it's more of the consciousness. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour back in 1980, and he essentially wills his consciousness from 1980 back to 1912. He clears out his room of all modern accoutrements. He dresses himself in the era, and essentially, you know, is feeding himself subliminal messages that, you know, he is actually in the Grand Hotel in 1912, and basically tricks his mind into believing that he is in that era. And sure enough, he goes back. And what ends up breaking that is some of the coinage that he had kept on him. So he went to a store, got some old coins, so he had money on him and that sort of thing, so he could pay for things while he was there. But he had accidentally kept a penny from 1980 in his pocket. And once he saw that, it broke that. Again, we talked about being in a meditative state. It broke that meditative state because he's like, oh, shoot, I'm actually from 1980. And lost that. And the story was developed by, it was written by Richard Matheson. It was a novelization first, Bid Time Return, and then became the movie Somewhere in Time. And he references a lot of books about time that had already been published during that era. So in the novelization, in the movie, he has his character go to the library to do some research. But he doesn't check out the time travel books. He checks out other things on this woman that he's trying to find. In the novelization, he one of the things that he researches is time, and the specific books that Matheson had researched himself for developing this story, he actually lists out there. So like Man in Time by J.B. Priestley and some others. And so you can actually go and get those books and read them. And so he based his ideas of this mode of time travel on these principles of time that other researchers had already dove into.
Man, that's fantastic. I need to check out that film.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I've never heard.
Sounds really intriguing. I like that. I mean, it makes me think of like the balancing act of, like, say, lucid dreaming. You know, when you get in the dream, and then the moment, you know, if you don't do it a lot, or if you have done it before, it's like the moment you become aware, it's kind of like, boom, I'm awake. Up. Like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to, and it's over. You know, you're like, there's your alarm, you know, cranking, and you got to wake up and get out of bed. And it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, I think Mike had made mention of it, and just with kind of the context of the conversation, we talked about, you know, just our ability, our power, our psyche inside of this three-dimensional body, but with that kind of ability that we're living in the fourth dimension in that time sphere, we're trapped in this third dimension reality of our bodies. But premonitions, telekinesis, psychic abilities. Do you have any kind of research on that, or any kind of work that you've done or explored that along in tangent with the time travel and stacked time theory?
Yeah, I talk about that in my book. I have a chapter in Travels Through Time on dreams and premonitions, and we talked a little bit earlier about when you're dreaming, when you're in those different brainwave states, that you actually can travel to another point in time. This is where we have those premonitions and things like that. ESP is kind of along the same line. You're actually, getting a vision of another point in time. So in a sense, your consciousness is traveling to that moment to get a glimpse of that and be able to watch it play out. And some, fascinating stories that I've included there within the text of how that works. And it's, in some cases, it makes you also question, okay, am I getting a glimpse of, an absolute future, or am I getting a glimpse of a possible future, maybe even alternate timeline sort of thing? So like one of the examples I give is, this woman has a dream about, and this is back in the day, but she has a dream of, she's basically there with some friends. They're camping and they're by a creek and all that. And she's doing laundry at the creeks. Who does laundry at the creek these days, right? And she had put like the baby down to go grab whatever the heck it was. And in the dream, the baby drowns. Well, when she woke up, she's like, oh, okay, baby's alive in the crib, all that, fine. Well, sure enough, some months later, she and her friends had gone camping with the kids and all that stuff, went to go down to the creek to do some laundry, and she was about to put the baby down to go grab whatever the heck it was, and then she remembered the dream. So, was the dream a warning? Was it a glimpse of a possible future? Because the whole thing was playing out precisely until that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as someone that's had I won't say that many experiences with it, but enough deja vu experiences of feeling almost like when you get to them, you're just like, you get that feeling. It's almost like every sense in your body goes off and you're like, you feel like something is just about to happen. And the only thing I can ever say is I've just tried to keep myself to like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. If there is something that's supposed to happen, if I'm supposed to, I just try to go to whatever feels like I'm going to be safe in that moment. Like I've never had a deja vu while driving. It's, it's seeing something in my office or hearing a song or a smell or this or that. And it sets it off and you're like, wait a minute. I feel so strongly like I have been at this exact moment before. It's freaking me out.
Remember, mutual friend, we had Ryan Singer from Me and Paranormal You on the stand-up comic.
Yeah.
I heard that you were on his show.
Yeah.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, we just had him on.
That's awesome. We had Ryan on, and in the middle of the episode, he started getting deja vu.
Oh, yeah.
So hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
And for like an entire minute, he's like, it's still going on. It's still like, I've never met you guys in person.
You got fairly wide-eyed and excited. Yeah.
I've never been on this show or on your set. We had him in studio because Ryan is living in Dayton. I think he's moving back to LA soon, but anyways, so he just drove down and we had him in studio. So it was a great time. We got to hang out, kick it. But, it was really weird that we've live on air. We've never had somebody had deja vu.
That's cool.
Yeah, he got pretty charged up off of that one.
I can imagine he did. There's a couple of different ways we can look at deja vu. And I do believe we are getting some sort of glimpse of the future when that happens. So we mentioned dreams before. Well, a lot of times when we dream, and we all do this, you don't quite remember all of your dream, right?
Right.
You wake up from a fascinating dream and you're telling a friend or a loved one, and you're like, this happened and then this, and oh, wait, was it that? Or was it? You start to lose it, right? So that's why they always say, if you want to keep track of your dreams, wake up, write it down immediately in a dream journal, because you're going to lose it. And sometimes we lose practically all of it. And every once in a while, when we have those deja vu moments, I think that's like just a little fragment of that dream that has stayed with you. And so when you enter that moment, you're like, this is really familiar. and it's, a fragment from a dream, which still, is a type of premonition.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another way to look at deja vu is, so we talked stacked time theory earlier. So all moments are there concurrently wherever you're at. Well, if you are one that believes in reincarnation, that you come into this world and you live a life, you pass away and you come back, you live another life and so forth. Well, that would mean with stacked time, yes, every single one of your lives is here concurrently. Wherever, and I think it's, we're projecting in from the beyond to here, and we're living out all these different lives concurrently. So the deja vu could very well be that you at one point in time and you at another point in time are actually inhabiting the same space at the exact same moment. And you're like, well, wait a minute, this seems really familiar. And maybe it's because you are there right now, but in another life.
Oh, cow.
See, that makes more sense to me than anything I've heard. That makes a lot. That really, really resonates with me. 'Cause, I mean, I've always either felt like, oh, this feels like a dream that I kind of had. But then other times you're like, no, this wasn't anything like any dream I've ever had. This is something completely different.
Yeah.
That you are somehow syncing up with a different version of yourself on one of these alternative timelines. And if anybody's ever watched the series Loki,
Nope.
that whole show is about Loki destroying the strands of time. As all these Lokis keep causing havoc in other timelines, the timelines split and they start going off into this whole destructive, and then that one splits, and then that one splits. So the whole organization of these time police, essentially, that are constantly tracking people down like Loki, that are just completely blowing these timelines. And so what do you think about that? Are we on some kind of trajectory where, like, if I decided to come 5 minutes late today to the studio, something could have completely shifted my reality? Are we always taking these kind of fork in the road moments?
God, I hope not. I'm gonna have to really get on time.
I have a hard time with that one actually, because if every single decision that we make splits off another timeline, then we would have an infinite number of different timelines being spawned off every day. So like me just taking, deciding to lift up this water bottle, that split off another timeline.
Right.
I find that a little hard to believe. And some people have tried to put rules on top of it. Like, well, it's some of the more, bigger, more significant events, like, getting married or buying a new house or something like that. And it's like, well, who makes those rules? And what if me buying that car, maybe it's a significant thing for me, but what about all these other little insignificant things? Like, okay, I decide to cross the street, not a big deal. But what if me crossing the street at that particular moment causes this car over here to slow down for a moment to allow me to cross the street, but that screwed up that car's timing to get into this other intersection and they got into an accident over there? Not a big deal for me to cross the street at that moment, as I decided, but it's a big deal for the other person because they ended up getting into a car accident. So again, who would make the rules in that case? So I have a hard time with that particular idea. But I do have, since we were talking about deja vu and everything, there is a third option for deja vu. And it's actually not as supernatural in nature. It's a little bit more scientific. So there's this idea that we may retain our ancestors' memories within our DNA, that as long as whatever it was happened before the conception of, like if it's our grandfather, as long as it happened before the conception of your mother or father, then that genetic marker would be put in place. So if some ancestor down the line will say, I don't know, we'll throw Scotland. You know, you had ancestors from Scotland. They had whatever things happen in their lives. As long as, you know, something significant or they were at a location or whatever happened before the begetting of, you know, the other ancestors, then that genetic marker has a opportunity to be a part of you. Sometimes we inherit traits from our ancestors, sometimes we don't, or skips generations. Kind of all it's kind of ones and zeros. What gets turns on, what gets turned off.
Good point.
So some of these deja vu moments, like, okay, we walk into this castle in Scotland, you're like, oh my gosh, this seems really familiar. I swear I've been here before. This is the first time I've been to Scotland. How is that? And it could be because one of your ancestors was there, had a significant experience, and set that genetic marker there that ended up getting passed down to you.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
But I felt that at Stonehenge. I felt that when I went to Chichen Itza. I felt that when I went to Chaco Canyon. I literally felt that way when I visited those places. And then years later, when I took a DNA test, I found out that genetically tied to these places that I visited in the past, and especially Stonehenge. I mean, there was like a barrier that we walked into where I immediately, it was like a hard line walking through a magnetic barrier where all of a sudden I started feeling, this is so familiar. And just something about it felt home. It's weird.
There you go.
But epigenetics, I think, is what they call that.
Yeah, epigenetics. There you go. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing. I mean, you always hear, you know, so if anybody's looked into shamanism or has looked into Native American spirituality, you know, a big thing is your ancestors are always with you. Maybe they really are.
Maybe that's what they mean by it in a certain way. Is that epigenetics of it, they are with you. Interesting. Never thought of it that way. That's like making me think of stacked time as a person. Like, you know, you're stacking the time in you and your DNA.
Yeah. And what is kind of crazy about that, of course, with the idea of reincarnation and all that, what if you are one of your own ancestors?
Wow.
What if the grandfather paradox and all that just rushed through my head. I'm like, wait, trying to do the calculations of all of that just hurt my head. And Bub was taken off guard. Usually his ADD brain is like right there with you, but you snapped him there. You broke
you've got a number of good ones. You've got a number of good ones, Mike, that really, you know, I like to think we're fairly well versed in being able to have these kind of like rubber band experiments of, you know, really stretching our minds. And even what you were just saying a moment ago with you know, well, choice A leads to parallel universe B, and then, you know, me turning on the light switch leads to, I get with you. That's a lot to take in. Maybe again, though, maybe that's where we go. Maybe we're not able to get it. What if that really is? I mean, I have to go with both ways on it because I think finite and I think infinite, right? Like neither of them makes sense to me, but I have to accept that either one of them is going to happen probably, right? Either I die and everything's finite or I die and everything's infinite, which I still can't grasp either of those. So I still can't. That's one of the biggest things I struggle with is I think that is an eventuality of there really is only, in a binary sense too, 0 or 1 there. Either everything is 0 or everything's going to be 1 there. I don't get it, and that really trips me up.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of things about this universe that just really still is, but it's beyond human comprehension. We try, and we're trying to make sense of it, and we have been for thousands of years trying to make sense of it all. And I don't know if we're ever really going to. You know, maybe when we pass away, we'll get some glimpse of that and a better understanding. Maybe not. Maybe we'll be even more in the dark. I don't know.
Everything just goes black. There really is nothing. Boy, wouldn't that be a letdown?
Well, it's like hearing,
kind of would be for me. I mean,
well, it was like hearing
all the inner work I've done over the years to just like go into nothingness would be like, damn. Like a nice, just relaxing nothingness. But I was listening to Graham on an interview again the other day, Hancock, right, and he was talking about how. He almost sounds excited. Like certain people almost sound excited. Like, I've been here. Like, not saying I'm trying to rush it, but when it happens, I'm excited
to figure out what is going to happen. Like, to me, that is the ultimate, like, what's behind door number 1 or 2 or 3, whatever door you pick. But, you know, we're going to exist here and appreciate all this time and what you're experiencing and what you're taking in, but also prep your mind. I mean, I'm not Egyptian, but I'm not taking anything with me necessarily, but I want to prep my mind. You know, if there is a remainder of consciousness that we go forward with, I might need these faculties that I built up here. You know, I might really need to pack myself before going away. So, you know, really soaking up life and knowing as much as we can.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I try to say is that one of the reasons that I believe we're here, because everybody's going, why? Well,
sure.
I don't think we are, again, really going to understand the grand concept of it while we're here. But in the meantime, you know, let's love each other, let's help each other out, and the knowledge that we gain, you know, let's pass it on to others. Humanity finds itself in these terrible cycles. So, you know, hopefully, you know, the knowledge that I've gained, you know, and I pass it on to somebody else. Hopefully, you know, they'll pick up the mantle and keep it going so we don't fall into the cycle again. But yeah, as we get older, don't want to rush it. But it's one I always think to, you know, Bilbo Baggins at the very end of Lord of the Rings, at the end of Return of the King, and he's like, I think I'm ready for another adventure. It's like the only thing he hasn't done yet, right?
Yep.
100%.
Well, that's what they're doing when they get on that ship.
Right.
You know that, right? They're basically passing over into elvish heaven or whatever you want to call it, whatever theological row you want to put it in. But I didn't realize that until I watched what was the Rings of Power. When Galadriel's supposed to go and she comes back. I had no idea that boat was basically Bilbo got on it, was like off. But
I had to
your
look
point,
that up. Because she's fighting to get off the ship when it's going back into the heavenly plane where everything's golden. Like, I really enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't enjoy that series on Amazon, but they kind of open up the whole show with that concept, and it's just like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting show, and I can understand, you know, having, you look at my bookshelf back there, I have several different sets of Lord of the Rings. I got the whole history of Middle Earth back there. I'm a big Tolkien fan.
Love it.
So I understand why the, you know, real core hardcore fan base was upset, because it's probably a different interpretation. Well, for one, it's stuff Tolkien never wrote, and there was such a legal struggle with what they can talk about and what they can't cover and all of that sort of stuff. So people were like, well, this is like, you know, Middle Earth fan fiction, and in some senses it is. But, you know, I appreciated that, you know, we got to see aspects of Middle Earth that we really hadn't before, like the creation of Mordor and things like that. You know, we got to see, like you mentioned, you know, the passing over into Valinor. I mean, sure, if you read the Silmarillion, you get that idea, you know, of how that works. But, you know, how many people who have, you know, watched the movies and enjoyed them had really any idea of what that was? They didn't. So we got to, you know, see an interpretation of it. So I appreciate that. And aesthetically, it was beautiful.
And the music, I listened to some of the music just on Spotify all the time.
Yeah,
I played it for you out at the cabin that time. It's
great.
Such, and you know, you also got to see the beginning of Gandalf the Grey and how he comes down in the meteor.
Great. Yeah,
and for like 4 episodes, we're going, is it Gandalf? Well, we really don't know. We don't really know. Is it Sauron? Is it Because there's so many.
Yeah, they did that really well, playing it back and forth. You know, really up almost till the very end.
Yes.
Until they like finally revealed, nope, this is Sauron. And you're like, oh yeah. They played that pretty well, and you get to see Numenor. You know, we've heard about Numenor with you know, with Aragorn. They talked about, you know, his lineage, and
great point.
You can see Isildur and those. So you get to see Numenor, which is essentially Tolkien's Atlantis. Yeah. So somewhere along the way, we're going to see the fall of that, which I think will be interesting.
Oh my goodness, you've got me so excited!
You get to see the height of the inner kingdom of the mountain of the dwarves.
Oh yeah, when
it's in their
building
full force, and they discover the
mines. Is that
the metal?
That's when they find the mithril. Yeah, it's Moria before they find the mithril. Yeah,
is it Moria?
It's Moria.
Mines of Moria. It's not. I'm thinking, what's the other mine? What's the one from when they in the Hobbit where they go to get? From
That's the Lonely Mountain.
Lonely Mountain, the city of
Where they
Dale.
That's
hold
Erebor.
Erebor. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Where
it's
the
not
dragon
Erebor
is.
in the.
No.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that's what I mean. As we've talked, Inner Earth
Glad
and
we've got
Hollow
that.
Earth
Yeah.
and
Cleared up.
definitely with the. All right, we needed that.
Yes.
But definitely with them
and
getting
the
in there.
Balrog. What's in the depths of the earth? The
Right.
Balrog.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean,
Yeah, and that's another thing is you're finding out a lot more about Morgoth. I mean, it was mentioned, briefly with the Balrog in Lord of the Rings, but I mean, he is like the central bad guy in the Silmarillion. So it's nice that the Rings of Power is giving you a glimpse into Morgoth and the destruction that he wrought, before Sauron came to power. So yeah, you're getting a lot of that.
We could talk about Lord of the Rings.
I know we just totally geeked out on all
all
this.
day.
Yeah.
That was awesome because I didn't
That's
know
totally
that, Chuck.
fine.
So
Yeah.
I have
Super
to
fan,
I have to YouTube or Stoner, our producer and director. That's
his name is Stoner. Kyle.
His
Stoner.
real name is
We
Kyle
have to
Stoner.
always put an
Preface that.
exclamation next to that.
but his brain, he's Stoner.
He's a genius.
But I'll either ask Stone's read everything Tolkien. You guys would definitely get along in this sense, but I always have to check with him, as the series unfolded.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing about Tolkien. We were talking before about, frequency, resonance, vibration, even sound. So Tolkien, in his writing, his creation of Middle Earth was with music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he was kind of giving us a glimpse of kind of the background of our own universe. We talk about, even like string theory, vibrating strings. Well, vibration creates different waves that at some point, would actually be audible if you have the right equipment to be able to pick up and listen to it. So he was onto something there. It's a work of fiction, but there are some principles that he includes within there.
Absolutely, and it does tie in with the word of God, and on the first day he said. So it's always sound is always at the beginning of these origin stories. They're kind of slipping it in there, but we've been just on a kick of cymatics and sound resonant frequency, and we had a high flute player, a friend of ours, Amel Michael, where she does these sound immersion therapies for people. She's living and she did one for us live on air, and I was just complete for a whole month. She did something. She knocked
kind
something.
of cleansed your palate, your mental palate.
She knocked something loose in this studio too. And we were just sitting here with headphones on, and all the people that were here that were watching it live were blown away. I had people hitting me up over that episode. Like, it didn't blow up into a viral, but anybody that saw that video in that episode was blown away. And just the flute, that the way that she's able to tap into something that is way beyond music.
Yeah.
It's this harmonic resonant frequency and what it can do to your body, your chakras. And then, using that in these ceremonies that she's able to help lead down in Costa Rica. And that's kind of what she's doing, is these immersion therapies for people. But you look at, ancient writings of Egypt, and are they talking about sound? And is this some kind of technology that we just don't have yet, but they're starting to really figure it out?
I think it's a rediscovery of technology. You look at, because I do the tours out there in Egypt, the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour, which we're doing again in April. And
oh my goodness.
The access that they had into what they call Stargate, and you see a label, it's right there in plain sight. Stargate. And how did they use those? How did they access the Stargate themselves? So you see the use of the Temple of Dendara. Well, Hathor, she's primarily known as a healing goddess, but she was also a goddess of music. And we see the depiction of Stargates in several locations throughout Dendara and other other locations as well. But they also, you'll see them use, well, it looks like, white cakes. They're handing a white cake. And these were, many believe, actually white cakes of monatomic white gold.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Keep going, Mike. Sorry. I've been going down some rabbit holes with this lately. This is great.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here for it. I love it.
Yeah, which is really fascinating. So David Hudson had done some research on this back in the 80s, because basically he came across the stuff on his ranch that he had. And so he's actually patented the process to be able to make it, but really kind of rediscovering a process. And it has some really, really interesting properties. Like you put this white gold, and it's a dust. It's like powder. It's not, like your jewelry or what have you. And you put it into a pan, that you're going to weigh it on a scale or whatever. And all of a sudden it weighs less than without the powder in it. So it's almost like anti-gravity type properties. You heat it up to a certain temperature and it disappears. And sure, we have different things that we can heat up different temperatures and, it seemingly turns invisible. But one of the things that they would do in their experiments with this is, okay, if it seemingly turns invisible and the product is still there, well, you can still manipulate it, by stirring it with a spoon or something like that. And then when you cool it back down, it will take the shape of what you stirred it into. Except with the monatomic white gold, heat it up, turns invisible or disappears. You take that spoon, and stir it around, cool it back down, should be in the shape of whatever it got randomly stirred into, right? Nope, it's the exact same as before they had heated it up. So then they start to question, okay, where did it go? Did it, they start questioning, did it move on to another dimension by heating it up? And if you look at or listen to some of Hudson's stuff, he's done different events and seminars and that sort of thing. You can find that stuff on YouTube. He talks about interdimensional travel. He talks about, the manipulation of time and these sorts of things. So if the ancient Egyptians were ingesting this to go into a Stargate, was this some sort of catalyst that they were using to move into another dimension? Is that what activated this thing? Makes you wonder.
Yeah, it sure does.
It's making me think of the spice melange of Dune and Arrakis and being able to travel throughout.
It's very similar to monatomic gold.
Jeez.
And this is
so wild.
This is the root of the Hermetica, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the...
Color me interested, because I never gave monatomic gold the time of day before.
Well, it's
on my list now.
You hear that people are trying to turn lead into gold.
I didn't know anything. I just didn't understand.
Really, the base of it is monatomic white gold. It's not really gold that they're trying to create. Like what...
I get it. What Mike was saying. Yeah, Totally.
People
makes sense now.
Mistake like monatomic white gold. Like you said, it's just a powder. It's this dust,
energy source, or it's a travel medallion, or some kind of token to interdimensional travel. Maybe, who knows? I mean, it sounds very interesting. Or, you heat it up and it disappears.
I think it changes. Yeah, I think it changes your frequency to put you into. We've talked about changing frequencies on the stack of time.
Yeah,
and that essentially is moving you through to be able to travel like that, right? Again, okay, we're on the fourth dimension. Those above us, 5, 6, 7, everything is whole. It's all there. They can move about it freely. So what if ingesting this sets your body at the right frequency to be able to do that interdimensional travel, to go to 6, 7, 8, and then you can move in and about time as you see fit.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, or even incorporating it into spacecraft, turn on this thruster, it heats up the monoatomic gold. Now, next thing you know, your craft is traveling.
Is that the fuel? Is that part of the fuel?
Right.
Or is that's, we use, so like in our electronics, we use, quartz a lot.
Right.
Timepieces, all that sort of thing. So is that, in a sense, the interdimensional version of quartz?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The piezo effect and using them in ultrasounds, and it's really wild once you start going, that's how that works.
Yeah, we had a guest on that went on a whole rabbit hole of royal shungite and Russian shungite and putting it in his water and basically like antibacterial, antimicrobial. So,
some of the properties of them.
It's minerals and crystal. Like there's strange things that it's capable of.
Yeah.
And people, think crystals and all this stuff is some kind of woo-woo thing. But why were ancient people so upset? Like Atlantis, you hear about these giant crystals and these flame keepers. And they were responsible for keeping these giant flames that were all basically crystal-based technology, all of that technology. But it was sound and crystal technology together. And that's all like Drunvalo Melchizedek kind of channeled weirdness, but
again,
it's
if
interesting.
You're trying to amplify frequencies and stuff with, say, crystals or something like that, right?
Well, yeah, and you go into any of those temples there in ancient Egypt, and the construction of the building can vary. A lot of them are limestone. You might have some that are some type of sandstone. They all have like some granite that's incorporated within. But one thing they all have that is the same throughout every single one, that threshold when you walk into the temple is granite.
Mm-hmm.
Granite, this is Aswan rose granite, which has about 55 to 60% quartz. And the reason for that was to set your frequency as you walked into the temple so that you were at the proper resonance to be able to walk in there. Every single temple has that.
How many times have you been to Egypt? You said you mentioned the tours and your
twice. So we have the third tour coming up here in April. Yeah.
Just was curious about that because you're saying too, walk in and you hit that granite. I'm imagining.
I wonder if I could do that. Stonehenge.
I would try to do that barefoot almost though, if I could get in there and get my feet to tap onto that.
And some people on our tours do that. Yeah,
really
take their shoes or sandals off before they walk into the temples. Yeah,
ground and get all that energy and figure. Oh man, that's so interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Have you been to Luxor Temple, Mike? When you were on your tour, what did you think about that place? Did you see the quartz? I guess you'd call them baths that are on the outside and just kind of randomly everywhere. I don't know if you got a chance to get eyes on any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. You've got, large pieces of quartz like that, large pieces of granite, huge pieces of alabaster. Alabaster was a big thing. So, yeah, you see, I mean, really throughout all of those temples where it was a function of it was what made everything operate, right? So they used a lot of the quartz, sure. The obelisks, were again that Aswan rose granite, which has a lot of quartz content in it. So these were, in a sense, like functioning machines. There was a vibrance to them. They were humming. So absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and that's what you feel when you go to these places. It is almost like, it's a functioning machine. Some of those places, like, Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, like that feels like a time travel ship that you enter of some sort. Or, Pumapunku, where they have these big granite doors that just go nowhere. There's the doorway, but there's just rock. Like, are these stargates? Are some of these places
Ramamuro,
functional stargates, or are they some kind of time travel device in physical form where you're, like you said, you're getting your energy resonant frequency? It's harmonizing with the temple. Now you can go sit in this big quartz crystal charged up place and go interdimensional inwards. But everything has to line up, right? Mm-hmm. Frequency wise for it to work.
Oh yeah, for sure. A great example is Hatshepsut's temple, and what's wonderful about it is you have all the pieces there. They're still there. Well, for the most part, you have this staircase that's essentially going back into the temple that is built into the cliff there. And this is right outside of Luxor. And alongside the stairs are these, well, right now they're carved as falcons in the depiction of horse, but they are recarved from older statues. And what had originally been there were snakes. Because you still see this tail of the snake going up alongside the staircase. So it's there, and then they've been recarved into falcons now. So the ancient Egyptian symbol for energy was the snake. That's what they used to depict energy. So you see this going back up into the temple. So it's a beautiful picture. Okay. Off on the side is the base of an old pyramid. It's no longer, you just got the base. The pyramid itself is gone. Well, we know that the Egyptians had used pyramids to harness the earth energy and bring it into a location. I know a lot of people try to debate it, but there's a scientific paper that came out a few years back that basically laid out, yes, the tests that we've done at the Great Pyramid of Giza, it is encapsulating energy within its structure. Okay, great. So thank you for confirming that for us, science. We already knew that. But so you have a structure here off on the side that's harnessing energy for this temple. Well, as you continue, you go up the stairs, you pass these, again, different thresholds that have the granite, but on the sides of the doorways, as you're walking into the courtyards, you have Stargate. Then there's the bark hall that goes back to the Holy of Holies, all the way in the back of the temple. Again, you have Stargates on the side there. And there's also an interesting sign there that says, tour guides, please don't explain anything inside here.
What?
Yes. Don't explain anything in here.
What? Just don't try to theorize on what this is if you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go inside, and you can only stand inside the bark hall, which is basically the passageway for the gods to move through, is kind of the way they described it in their literature. There's a couple of guards standing there. They will not let you into the Holy of Holies. You can tip them, and they will take a photo back into there, but you still don't get to see the whole thing. Now, if you get there early enough in the day, like my good friend Johnny Enoch, and pay them enough money and nobody else is around, they will let you back there. So you can take a picture in the very back of the Holy of Holies, against the one wall that you can't see from outside, is this massive cartouche of stars. So this is it's really the only place where you see something like this. It's a wonderful depiction of, this is the Stargate.
Whoa. So
all the pieces there. You get symbolism of energy. You have the power plant. It's no longer there now. You have all the markings of Stargate, and then the actual Stargate chamber is all the way in the back.
Damn. Yeah, we met a lady. This is resonating with me. We met a woman out at Serpent Mountain a few years back, and which I need to follow up and hit her up. She was fascinating, but she did a whole tour of Europe and became obsessed with St. Michael's Tor, which is a mounded hill, and the legends go back to all the way to King Arthur's buried there. Like every legend and conspiracy of England always kind of comes back to this area. And what she was saying was, what she was uncovering was that there's all these ley lines and energies that have been flowing through that area for thousands and thousands of years, and these people had built mounds, and then they had come along and built certain ways to capture that energy. And then when the Catholics came in and took over the area, they built a giant castle structure to Saint Michael, the archangel. And so Michael is connected with the serpent, and driving the serpents, and driving the serpents out of Ireland, and all this kind of snake and serpent mythology that really wraps up into these sites that are much, much older. And like you said, the serpent is always represented. And our buddy VJ from India talks about the the Kundalini energy that rises up through your body, and those are always represented by serpents. And so we just always come across this all the time. And here in Ohio, with the earthworks and mounds, the ley lines, that's serpent iconography here as well. So, whether it's St. Michael's Tor, whether it's Egypt, whether it's here in Ohio, you're always seeing this connected with energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a shame. There's been this, this campaign of propaganda against the ancient depiction of the serpent. He's been cast as the bad guy when for most cultures across the world, this was actually a very important piece of iconography. I mean, it's still used in our medical profession, by the way. And that came from the Middle East, was the serpent for healing. Yeah, the caduceus. There you go. Thank you. So and we still use that and kind of forget, oh no, this actually had positive connotations to it.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a real shame that we see that. Yeah, it meant healing. So, but the temples and churches and things like this, the more modern ones, were built on top of these ancient sites of power. And it was a twofold thing. One, we're going to stamp out the old religion. Two, we're going to harness their energy that they were using, because they knew what was going on there. So yeah, some of these locations, we truly don't know how old they are, how ancient they are, and what specifically that they were used for, because more, modern religions came in and wiped that out or masked it or what have you. But our ancient peoples knew that there was energy in the ground there that was to be had. We call them ley lines. I usually say that's the layman's term, is ley lines, because it's what we're concerned with is the energy in the ground, the telluric earth currents. And it's we call it the ley line. Alfred Watkins, the old straight track, about 100 years ago, had noticed this. Wait a minute, all these different ancient sites of power and all these churches and all these temples, they line up in a straight line. And they do that. They line up in a straight line because the ancients were tapping into these locations. And sure enough, of course, they all lined up. Yeah. So yeah, I always find that, fascinating when we talk about ley lines, or the nodes when they cross, which are really conductivity discontinuities. But who wants to say that? Who wants to say telluric currents and conductivity discontinuities? Let's call them ley lines and energy nodes. It's a lot easier.
And these telluric fields, they were experts on this stuff. And was it some kind of a machine to where, for example, the Newark Circle and Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza are all in a row, and literally are completely connected all the way through the Great Trilithon in Stonehenge. And so if these places, are they some kind of jump portal here on Earth, potentially, to where people had figured out a way to get from place to place through these temple systems of being able to not just time travel, but jump, essentially? Star Trek stuff. When we talk, stargates, what does that mean? we usually think of the movie from 1994. Okay, we're traveling to some other place in the universe, and we may be. It may be somewhere else in the universe. It could be somewhere else here. And, maybe that's why there were some significant similarities between like what you saw in Egypt and what you saw in South America, like temple construction. Even you go to Elephantine Island, which has one of those stargates that's pretty much been obliterated, although the gate itself is still there. But down in the one temple on the lower level, you see a depiction of somebody in a Mayan headdress. What the heck is that doing there? So, were these stargates connecting locations on Earth? That's possible. Could be. We've talked other dimensions. We've talked other points in time. So there are a lot of possibilities on the table. Now, there are rumors coming out of Egypt from what we call Egypt's Area 51 that they have a working stargate there. Of course, it's on a military base, so we don't know what the truth of that is. Is it just a rumor? But
on that installation, which is in the area known as Dasher, you have the Red Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid that's right there. And then boom, here's this military base. And there are the remnants of some ancient pyramids there, like the bases. There's one where you have all these chambers that are carved into the rock, and either they never finished the pyramid or the pyramid was completely obliterated. But you mentioned before, like the baths, right? There is a huge bath-like structure right in the middle of this thing. And the photo's over 100 years old from the Italian Egyptologist or archaeologist who was working on the site. And unfortunately, we don't have any modern day photos of it, but you do find elsewhere in Egypt a similar type of structure. It is like a bath type structure. So, were they, was that the way they were entering? Not sure. But the supposed active one at this Egypt's Area 51, people have described it as like an aurora on the ground, and you step into this aurora and you go off someplace. Again, we're not really sure, but because it's a story that's come out of there, right? Can't confirm it because we can't get on the base. But you mentioned Stonehenge, and there's a story from the early 70s, and it's been chalked up to urban legend, but it makes you wonder. And it's called the Stonehenge hippies. I don't know if you guys heard the story.
No.
Okay. No. Okay. So it was a group of young adults going up to Stonehenge back at a time when you could actually camp there. And so they had set up camp. They're having a good time. And there was a storm that was rolling in, gotten to be about 2 a.m. Now, there was a police officer who was passing by at the time that witnessed this, and a farmer that was in the area. And of course, we can question as to what in the world the farmer was doing up, but apparently he was. And as this storm rolled in, there was this lightning starting to kick up, and there was this great blue flash of light in the sky. And they heard these screams, and all of a sudden, the young adults, the hippies, were gone. They had their equipment was still there, like their backpacks and that sort of stuff, but they themselves gone, according to the police officer and the farmer. Again, it's been chalked up as urban legend, but it makes you wonder about, okay, what was really the function of Stonehenge? There's a debate today as to, was it a calendar? Is it, really, lined up to the stars? What kind of rituals they're still arguing about all this stuff today. Well, one of the ideas, of course, is, it could have been used as some sort of portal. And, if this story was true, or maybe at least based in some sort of truth, because even, our legends and lore, there's a kernel of truth in there somewhere. Did that flash of lightning activate something? Maybe it was the right amount of energy to start this thing up.
Right. And
maybe it was a portal at some point back in the day, or some sort of Stargate that in this moment, it started it up and boom, off they went.
2.3 gigahertz.
Yeah. 1.21 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts. Sorry.
Yeah, gigawatts.
Oh, they sent them back.
No,
well,
I mean, I do actually remember hearing that story now. That's a really...
It's wild.
And no one had ever... Still to this day, no one has ever seen those folks, or they never popped up somewhere else.
They never reappeared.
Yeah.
Well, it's just one of those missing 411 cases almost of where... you hear about the Bermuda Triangle, the Serpent Triangle in Asia, and these places being these kind of portals that are, maybe the Earth has certain little mini black holes that is a part of our electromagnetic field, where at certain times these windows open up. And the ancients knew where these places were. And, the Bermuda Triangle, for example, that's where rumors of these big underground bases and some sort of giant crystal technology underneath there. And
under the water?
Under the water in the Bermuda Triangle. And so, go ahead.
You have a lot of those places around the world. I have, my book, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. Mm-hmm. We cover some of the underwater locations there. And, really what you're having here We've talked earlier about the Earth's magnetism. Well, okay, so how does that work? We've talked, ley lines and stuff. So, the core of the Earth is molten iron, and it's spinning, and it's creating that, electromagnetic field, which is a great thing because it protects us from the solar wind. And we had the big mass coronal ejection. What was it, a week and a half ago?
Yeah, recently.
We didn't have that magnetic protection. We'd have been fried.
Yep.
So it's a good thing, but as it passes through the Earth, the mantle and the crust and all that, it's interacting with different metals and minerals, water in some cases. And depending on, the type of metal or mineral that it passes through and the quantity, it creates different electromagnetic fields.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have some of these locations, Bermuda Triangle, Alaska Triangle, the Sedona area, that are going to have, we're not sure exactly the entire mineral composite that's in the ground there, but we know something significant there because it's creating these, portals, vortices, supernatural activity, all this strange stuff. With the Alaska Triangle specifically, because I did a lot of research on that for the book, in 1965, the U.S. Department of the Interior did a magnetic survey of about 100,000 square miles of Alaska, which is about 1/6 of the state, but it's still a pretty significant chunk. And within that area, they defined what they called, 5 distinct magnetic characters. And within those, negative anomalies. So they're already basically telling us, there's, strange electromagnetic fields in this area up here.
Mm.
Yeah.
And NASA's been tracking these
Cat's out of the
spots.
bag.
In the 50s, they didn't Kevin tell us that NASA had been scanning that area in the 1950s and 60s
Sedona?
in Sedona.
Yeah,
and
they were measuring the ley lines and all the energy fields come off them.
They were
for sure.
documenting heavily the vortex areas. And a lot of these kind of like Jeep Tour vortex maps are all based off of what NASA had discovered.
Basically, yeah. We
you can find a lot of those magnetic surveys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, here with Serpent Mound, the Serpent Mound impact crater, they thought it was a crypto explosion. And then, NASA had to come here and they were looking for the breccia. That's when they came to our friend Tom and were like, hey, have you heard about breccia around? He goes, oh, yeah, I'll show you I'll show you exactly where it's at. Tom knew all about it.
Yep.
He brought the NASA scientists.
Hal Puthoff.
And that's when they started putting it together that it was an impact crater, and that's why you were seeing all these magnetic anomalies.
Yeah.
The AEP had came there after a huge sweep of energy, completely knocked out these huge power transformers. And they're like, this is your magnetic ley line right in this area. So that's American Electric Power is telling them this. So this isn't there is a lot of science and documentation about these areas having these electromagnet. And if there is that much energy and this much that's what we know about, creating that much energy to open up portals, to have these kind of weird things and high strangeness. Maybe that's all it is, just some natural phenomenon that just opens and closes every now and then.
Well, it's all natural. So like the whole term supernatural, it's so I quote Hans Holzer a lot on this one. He says, there is no supernatural world. Everything that we experience is natural. Mm-hmm. It's just some of this stuff we don't experience as often, but it's very natural to our world, to our universe. And when we say ley lines, I think because it's been a big part of the metaphysical community, a lot of people kind of put it off as, oh, that's just, metaphysical woo-woo stuff. But no, this is actual, this is legitimate.
Right.
This is something that, our scientists have measured. We talk like dowsing, going out, using dowsing rods to find some of these lines. And surveyors still use dowsing rods today to find pipes in the ground and things like this. It's not just woo-woo stuff. There's something real to this. So, when we venture off into areas like this, you talk about missing 411, and a lot of people just vanish out of thin air. Somebody's walking next to you and poof, they're gone. Some of those people, a handful, have shown back up. And the ones that do tell some bizarre stories like, I heard a noise off the path. Took 2 steps out into the woods, to see what it was, couldn't find anything, turned around to get back on the path, and the path was gone and I was lost wandering around the woods for, the next 3 days or whatever. How did that happen? So did they step into something when they stepped off the path? Did they step into something that, was some sort of, mini portal that took them to somewhere else in the woods or maybe another point in time? We don't know.
Those scenarios really give me like nightmares.
But
for whatever reason, that whole like you just step 1 foot off and next thing you know, there's no, you've just gone into this parallel time slip and everything. You just, Mikey's not there anymore. Nobody's with you. That's just so weird to me.
But doesn't physics explain some of this stuff? I mean, we do have mathematics that, like you said, that's an Einstein theory, the Rosen bridge.
Right.
And
right. Well,
so
the theory.
There's a basis of, thinkers and people that have broken down the mathematics, and theoretically the stuff is possible mathematically. It's just we don't. I mean, can you break that down a little bit? Kind of some of the science behind some of this, Mike.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot of it comes down to math. Like when we look out to the vastness of the universe and trying to gauge what's out there, we use math to do that because we can't see all the universe. And then we put up a satellite like the James Webb Telescope, and it's bringing back images, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot more out there than what we expected. So the math, I think, takes us so far, and at some point it breaks down.
Right.
So talking portals, okay, NASA 10, 11 years ago, they put up a bunch of satellites to investigate these, what they call X points out there, which are portals. NASA has, we have portals out there. And they have these satellites that are investigating this phenomena. And basically what it is where the Earth's magnetic shield hits the solar wind. And that's where these X points are. And they are portals that are opening and closing at random intervals at varying sizes. And it essentially lets in the solar wind a lot quicker to hit the Earth. But in all of this time that they've been researching this, they're still scratching their heads. They're like, we have no idea why it opens at the size that it does. We have no idea why it may open, a minute from now. It may open an hour from now. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's very, very sporadic. So because what they want to do is that, they want to find that pattern. They want to apply some mathematic principles to it so that they can better gauge when these things are, going to happen and occur. And yet they haven't been able to do that.
Right.
That's wild that it's so sporadic, like you said, and trying to create a pattern to try to figure out how to harness that. And maybe, the ancient people figured that out. What we're trying to figure out, they figured out with this temple building process on how to harness the time, the energy. Maybe that's why calendar systems are built into these, and the stars are aligned to these temples. And, well, I'm freaking myself out.
Yeah, it's like trying to predict an earthquake, right? We know it's going to happen. We can, gauge some tension in the ground, but we don't know like the exact moment that it's going to kick off. Or, when we're talking the electromagnetism of the earth and the spinning of the core and all that, well, that energy that's emanating forth, it's not a constant. It ebbs and it flows, and it basically pulsates. And some of those pulsations are a little bit stronger. Some of them are a little bit softer. But there's not a specific pattern, at least that our modern mathematics has figured out to be able to say, okay, this is how strong it's going to be. So that's why, you'll have at some of these different sites, days where it's like, oh, I really feel the energy today. And other days where you're like, yeah, not so much today. But you might be right. The ancients may have figured out the key to that, or maybe they knew, maybe they had figured something out. Okay, this is going to be the day that it happens stronger than this other day. So we can do these other ceremonies, or we can enter the Stargate or whatever on that particular day rather than these others. They may have figured something out there.
That's what it feels like to me. Like, these places like Gunji Wap and America's Stonehenge. And, we've had Dennis on and talking about that place and just all the discoveries of Places in America that just see these stone chambers. We've had a lot of people on that are researching and finding these chambers and weird serpents throughout these ancient seabeds that are in Vermont and so forth. And I mean, you don't even have people that it's on people's radar in America. I mean, you have somebody that's researching these stone chambers for the next 50 years. Who knows what kind of technology or weird stuff we might find out about just that alone.
Yeah, technology is constantly changing. So a lot of the things that we have been able to detect and figure out lately is fascinating. Hidden chambers within the Great Pyramid of Giza. Well, we had no way to detect a few years ago that there was another chamber there above the Grand Gallery. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what technology might be able to help us uncover here in the future.
I'm excited. Even down in Guatemala and in the Yucatan, all the LiDAR and big, massive cities that we're discovering. I think now, in the next even 5 years, the amount of things that we're going to discover about our ancient past, if the powers that be can just get out of the way.
Oh yeah,
get out of the way a little bit.
There's so much politics in all of that.
Yeah,
there's a certain narrative that they want to tell. Somebody's written 5 books on this, and this one little piece of information basically negates all that. It's like, let's just write another book. Or people are worried about their funding for their program, because if they say this, then their backers are going to pull out. Go find new backers.
What if the story falls apart? Like your movie you were saying earlier, he brings the coin from 1980. What if their story falls apart if they actually give us the real timeline, so to speak, and the real history? And
then your theory was wrong. Move on.
No, you're missing what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is he's talking about the guy in the movie earlier that time travels. He has the coin in his pocket. That breaks his dream. If we undo the history that's been made for us or written down because they don't want to go back to it, does that break the spell of the history that we're in?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we're trapped in this paradigm of the history we're trapped in, or the reality we're trapped in. That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's why we're under the spell of that history.
And then we wake up in the real world and not in the Matrix.
Right. And we have woken up and there's technology that's beyond belief, which we should already have.
We're still, and I'm not against them because I drive one, but an internal combustion engine, it's tried and true. But, I was thinking we'd have old backpack jets right now, and like George Jetson, I'd have my own UFO to be able to fly off into the distance and go visit another planet at this stage. Yeah. Look at some of the films that theorize what the year, 2020 would look like, 2023, whatever. They thought we would, and don't get me wrong, we've got a lot of advancements in all kinds of ways, but
we're still trapped in a lot of ways.
We're still very high-class cavemen.
Well, we haven't developed spiritually. We've developed material science so far.
That's our alchemy to my perspective.
Yeah, consciously,
science and technology is our alchemy.
We can put it all together, and then now you have this Egyptian Atlantean style where science, spirituality, all of these things, it's not magic to them, it's science. The ancient Egyptians, we're looking at them going, holy shit, this is magic to them. No, this is just high science. What you call magic, high science.
They were able to marry it all together.
There you go.
And our modern society tries to keep these things apart.
Yes.
It's like, no, guys, these both science and spirituality, actually come together to create something that's, even more grand. You guys just need to get over yourselves with all the fighting.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Love it. Fantastic conversation.
My brain is stretched left, right. I love it. It's a very good mental workout. I find the best conversations and interviews we have afterwards, I'm just like waxed. I'm like, man, I just feel like I just ran like 10 miles or, because again, it's keeping me so thought engaged the entire time. I'm like, well, I'm going to take that theory. I can go there with you on that one. And you've had so many good points that you brought up too, to really kind of test my thought processes on some of these, or, even theorems or algorithms I run in my own mind of, this is how I think things are, because we all do that from time to time, right? We're kind of cycle back to, that's how this thought works. But again, that's even still a fluid environment too of, well, I need to change that now because this new piece of data came in, but it's like running those models over and over.
Yeah. Absolutely. You guys have very engaging conversationalists, asked a lot of wonderful questions. I've really enjoyed this one. So I wanna
Absolutely.
thank you for that. Because this, if I can come away from an interview like this and start thinking, oh, how, you know, you or whomever, made a great point or asked a great question, how can I follow that? And so it might end up becoming a part of my, research or a book somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Would be honored.
Man, much love, Mike. Much love. I mean, this is what we live for. Me myself have been obsessed with so many things. Anytime I can get, you have given me so many nuggets to add to these, what I call my stoner theories.
Yeah.
Which are just, me philosophizing with myself about ancient history and how that connects to the paranormal, how that connects to the UAP and alien phenomenon and ancient civilizations and all these things that I've been passionate about for so long. There's just all these nuggets, and I'm trying to just string up these bead after bead after bead, and maybe one day I'll pull up a necklace, maybe not. Maybe I'll keep continuing to make a necklace and it's never ever done. But hey, that's what it's all about. And dude, this was phenomenal. You've added so much to for us to chew on and think about.
Oh yeah.
And I do want to give you an opportunity to let us know where we can find you and leave our audience with some last words.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can find me at MikeRicksecker.com. Links to all my books are there, as well as the Egypt tour that's coming up here in April. I also have ConnectedUniversePortal.com, which it's an online learning platform that I've put together. But really, it's a community where like-minded people come together and discuss a lot of these topics. So check that out as well.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Definitely check that out.
Absolutely. This has been an unbelievable conversation and episode. Mike, we would love to connect with you. We've been trying to look at a tour to jump on. We've been connecting with Brian Forrester a little bit on Instagram, and he does all the, South America and Peru, some of the tours down there. We're always looking for somebody to connect with that can take us to Egypt. I think we really need to start looking at this. We keep talking about going to finding somebody that's got the in on one of these Egyptian tours. So we might be chatting with you in the future, Mike. Love
to have you guys down. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing because the tour guide, Mohammed Ibrahim, it's his tour company.
Oh,
and, yeah.
Very familiar.
Okay, you're familiar with Muhammad.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Wonderful. Absolutely amazing. And just because he knows everybody there. So we get into some locations that nobody else is able to get into, or a little back room of this temple that's locked up and the public can't get it. We're getting in there. The Great Pyramid of Giza. We're there, just our little group, 2 hours. The whole thing's opened up to us. So we're getting down there to the subterranean chamber and the Queen's chamber and all this.
That's
stuff.
amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for there is that behind the scenes. And, our cameras and gear get us behind the scenes of a lot of places. We're very blessed in the sense that, having that, it's one of the reasons why I got into video production, is allowing it to be more of a passport for me to get to places I want to see. And so, but always having that kind of inside when you go to these places and that fixer that can really get you into the places that the tourists can't go. That's what I'm after personally. And so this is great news.
Yeah. Mohammed has those connections, and he's such a wealth of knowledge too. I mean, he is by profession, he's an Egyptologist, but he's been doing the tours there for over 20 years, and he's got those connections to get us in places. So yeah, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
Sounds excellent.
Well, Mike, don't go anywhere. Thank you again. We really, really appreciate you. Absolutely. We're going to be right back. We're going to outro the show. I wanted to thank you again from all of us down here and everybody out there watching and listening. You guys can find all of Mike's stuff in our links. Mike, thank you so much.
Take care, Mike.
Thank you both so much. This has been wonderful.
Awesome. Well, there you go, guys. Mike Ricksecker, everybody. Go check out his new book.
I'm gonna have to start reading. Yeah.
There's, he's written quite a few books. The tours, the links. Go follow Mike. Get up
Covers
to date
a
on
lot of material.
a lot of different things
A
happening.
lot of material.
And hey,
Love it.
Ohio native, represent.
Even better.
That's what's up. And next time,
get him down in studio.
next time we'll chat with Mike and see if we can't get him down here. Always willing to help out with accommodations and
grab a dinner, get a bite, get a drink.
Yep.
Talk some more shop.
Be a good hang. You know.
I'm gonna have to get a good 8 hours sleep again before
the look at his
broke
face
me down for a while. It's like, man,
I knew this was going to be a good one
It
for
was
you,
great.
bub.
It was
And
great.
I kept you so in the dark about this.
he
one.
didn't tell me until 4 seconds before the show. Oh, he goes into doppelgangers too. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's even
Yeah.
it's kind of like saying we're gonna have ice cream. I already know we're gonna have ice cream, and then I get here and you're like, by the way, it's Baskin Robbins with every possible treat and topping you want.
Yep.
Of topics that you love to talk about and are very.
This is the
interested in,
root of, I think, both what you and I get really passionate about. I think we covered.
I like the theoretical stuff because that's where I deal with a lot. I have a mental gym that I go into, and I just work out crazy thoughts all the time.
Yeah, you do.
And I sometimes because to me, the most pure form of joy I've ever experienced is when I think or have had even the slightest inclination that I've had an original thought. Because 99.9% of your thoughts somebody else has had already. That you go on the internet, you think of something, an invention, an idea, this or that. Go Google it. It's out there. Go get it patented. Some patent troll has a patent out there waiting on you to make the thing that they have already patented so they can sue you for it. It's a whole thing. So when you get to an original thought or a unique
Conversation like this,
just sets me off. That's 100% what I'm here for.
And we hope all of you out there enjoyed this conversation. You guys keep up to date on everything we're doing. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Hit that share this video. Hit that like and subscribe button. You guys there's our link tree. We got links to the merch portal up. All of our links are in the description. And we love each and every one of you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. We are out.
Thank you.
Guys.